I'd like to call to order the City of Oconomowoc Council meeting for Tuesday, September 15th, 2020. Has appropriate meeting notification been made?
Yes, Your Honor, it has.
Please rise, everybody, and for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Alderman Mulder.
Here.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Here.
Alderman Kavieski.
Here.
Alderman Rogers.
Here.
Alderman Rozak.
Here.
Alderman Zaffel.
Present.
Alderman Ellis.
Here.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Here. I'd like to call to order the public hearing for the household living topic. The purpose of the hearing is to hear public comment on the zoning ordinance text amendment application filed by the City of Oconomowoc to amend Section 17-9031A of the municipal ordinance pertaining to the definition of household living. We have cards, and I'd be happy, let's first start with a discussion, Jason, and then if anyone has any questions, we'll address that in public hearing. Mr. Gallo.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll give a brief overview of this application. This was submitted by the city, the planning department, for a zoning ordinance text amendment as it relates to the definition for household living. This goes back to our definition conflicts with a recent court case, or not court case, but a determination in Madison to change the state law regarding the definition of how long someone can rent their house for, and it was inconsistent with the city's definition. So when people were calling my office to ask how long can they rent their house for, I was telling them 30 days, and that's inconsistent with state statute that says people can rent their homes as long as it's 7 days. I included in your packets the new state statute that talks about that. So all we're doing is removing one sentence from the zoning code that talks about tenancy shall be a minimum of 30 days. It's more of a housekeeping item to get our code consistent with the state statutes as how long someone can rent their house for. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Alderman Zapfel. Alderman Spiegelberg.
If a condominium complex has a covenant that says you can't rent out your property, does this state statute supersede that?
I don't think they can be more restrictive than the state statute on this, but we don't enforce covenants and restrictions anyway, so that's really for them to determine if they wanted to enforce that, but I don't believe they can be more restrictive than the state law.
Okay.
Yeah, well,
Alderman Rozak.
just, they can, because you
Can
agree
they?
to covenants and easements as part of your deed restrictions, so you can agree in a condo or homeowners association not to do something. So they can.
Okay.
So condominium unit could say you can't lease as part of your deed restrictions.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was hoping. Okay, great.
Alderman Zapfel.
So this, in regards to, say, someone rents out their house on Airbnb, we can enforce issues or concerns and whatnot in regards to that?
That's the purpose of this. It's to, right, we had a code that I couldn't enforce it.
Right. So what I'd like to do is kind of shift things. Do we have any comments in the public hearing from the group? With no public hearing, I'd like to have a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of meeting minutes for August 18th, 2020.
So moved. Second.
Do we have any, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Comments and suggestions from the citizens. Are there any comments from the audience? We have blue cards. Happy to have you fill those out and share your concerns or questions. With no comments from the audience, let's move to the consent agenda items listed on your agenda. Do we have a motion to accept or the consent agenda items? Alderman Rozak.
Mayor, I'd like to pull out item 7D out of the consent agenda. Resolution authorizing CDA to establish boundaries.
Any second?
I will
Second.
second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Let's move back to the rest of the consent agenda items. Do I have a motion on the other consent agenda items?
So moved.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Let's go back to consent agenda item number 7D, resolution authority of the Community Development Authority to establish boundaries, develop redevelopment plan, and designate the Olympia Fields area blighted and in need of redevelopment. Attorney Riffle.
No, he brought it off. He must have questions.
I do have a couple of real minor questions. One of the questions, with the mayor's permission, sorry.
Yes.
I think I raised my hand, but you asked me something. Red, I don't know, you look like a cowboy. And I can't get rid of the cowboy thing out of my head. Okay, so.
Cowboy works.
I'm okay with the memo. The memo sounds fine. It is necessary to establish boundaries. I believe it is, we do have to give the power, we gotta let CDA do this as far as blighting. What I don't like in the resolution is that in the last therefore, now therefore be it resolved clause at the end, prepare the necessary documents, acquire lands, and implement necessary improvement infrastructure to support the future redevelopment of the area. I understand from Bob and from you that whatever the CDA does is gonna be brought back to us, but it's not clear by this resolution. I think the resolution language is too broad. We've had problems in the past with the CDA going rogue and signing memorandums of understanding that bind the city council. That's why we were in a lawsuit with the thing next door. So what I would propose is we add this clause to the end. Now therefore be it resolved, any acquisition of land, infrastructure improvements, the entering of contracts or MOUs, or other redevelopment plans must be approved by the common council.
No problem.
Okay. That would be my motion to amend that
I will
resolution.
second that.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Real quick,
Oh, I'm sorry, Alderman Kavieski?
this question would be for Bob. With the addition of that verbiage, which I am supportive, does it change anything that would need to occur from that or through that body to do their?
It would not. Essentially, what this is authorizing us is to do something, because our ordinance and the statute gives us authority. Your local ordinance says we can't do anything unless we're granted that authority by this body.
Right.
So,
Okay.
And we have, what we're saying is, they just, before they sign an MOU or do a redevelopment agreement or make plans, they come back before us.
And all you're really doing is codifying what is already.
Correct.
So you can do this, but either way, it's gonna happen.
Okay.
That's why I said no problem.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper?
Nay.
Alderman Kavieski?
Aye.
Alderman Rogers?
Nay.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
Alderman Zaffo?
Aye.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Moving on to committee reports. Finance, please. Ms. Sullivan.
Mayor, I'm sorry, as a point of order, I think all we did was approve the amendment to the resolution.
You are correct.
So I
You
think
are
we need a
correct.
final vote on the amended resolution.
Yes, if we could have, thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go
If
back.
we could have a final vote on the amended resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
All in favor, excuse me, let's do roll, please.
Sorry,
Thank you.
Diane.
Sorry, this system just doesn't work for all these motions for.
Just one.
Okay, I got it.
Okay.
Do you want me to take a
I'll
roll call?
just call roll, please.
Oh,
Yes,
okay,
on
I'm
this one,
sorry.
yes. On this one, yes.
So
It
you have
was-
Alderman
It was not
Mulder?
unanimous.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper?
Nay.
Alderman Kavieski?
Aye.
Alderman Rogers?
Nay.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
Alderman Zaffo?
Aye.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Thank you. Let's move on to committee reports with finance. Did you have a comment, Attorney Riffle?
You want number 1 or 2?
We're at first one, finance, 1. Ms. Sullivan?
Background first? Okay. Tonight, I'm coming before you to request an extension to our audit contract with Baker Tilly. background on this is the city has had the same auditor for 25-plus years before we went out for this latest RFP. So Baker Tilly was our new auditor. They've completed their third audit with us. Their contract ends the end of this year. And what we've discovered is that 3 years is a very short time with an auditor. It takes a couple of years just to get work papers set up and get a system going. And basically, staff has just got to the point where we understand what's expected of us and what we give to them. What I would really like to do is to extend this contract for a year or two. I'm recommending 2. And after that time, we would go for an RFP again. We won't let this go for 25 years like we did before, but 3 I found is too short. So what I would like to recommend is that we extend for 2, and then we do an RFP and change this contract term to 5 years in the future. Now, what I did do is I went back to the 3 years ago when we did the RFP and pulled up the other proposals and took a look at what their 3-year costs were, because I just wanted to compare to what Baker Tilly was putting here for us for the next 2 years. So when I looked at it, we would have been paying these costs already this last year. So this is still a really good deal for us, and I think it makes a lot of sense to change this to a 5-year contract.
Alderman Rozak.
Really brief comment, thank you. I think we've uncovered a lot of these old contracts that have been sitting around for decades and have cleaned them up, and the assessors, the home inspectors, and this is great, thank you for this. I don't think you should use the same auditor for 25 years, that's crazy, so thank you.
Would anyone like to make a motion?
No, we got somebody.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, we can
Alderman
always go into
Spiegelberg.
some discussion, but I'd like to advocate for this too. You know, I've been on the auditor side of things, and when you get into a contract where it's only 2 years and you barely get up over that learning curve and you're getting a relationship with that organization or whatever, and then all of a sudden the rug gets pulled out from under you, that's very difficult to do. I love what Baker Tilly's done for us. The first year they came, they found a bunch of reclassifications on some stuff that, you know, we'd had shanked for 25 years. So I'm all for this. I think it's great. Paul and his team have done a great job for us, so.
Agreed. Make the motion to approve the 2-year contract extension.
Second.
Call roll, please.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper?
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski? Alderman Rogers? Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
Alderman Zaffel?
Aye.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Next item up, consider act amending ordinance 860170 of the City of Oconomowoc Municipal Code regarding the room tax. It'll be the first reading. Attorney Riffle.
So I'm up here to remind some of you that were here 3-4 years ago when this law was changed by the legislature. Essentially, the appropriate lobby that wanted to enable individuals to rent their homes out on short-term basis convinced the legislature to put into effect some changes to the law. And it was up in the air in terms of whether or not you could rent your home out, and if there were ordinances in place that said you couldn't, they basically said, well, yeah, you can. That law went into effect just before the U.S. Open. And we brought to the attention of the council the possibility of regulating short-term rentals in the city. And the council said, you know what, we want our folks to be able to cash in on this. And so they said, no, we do not want to put into effect a local ordinance that would regulate short-term rentals. Now, the staff has had some issues in terms of complaints related to short-term rentals. And you recently put into place a revision to your ordinances that would have short-term rentals pay hotel tax or room tax. So I'm teeing it up for you folks to decide whether you want to direct staff to do a 180 on your decision the last time and whether or not we want to regulate short-term rental so that you have in place some ability, if folks are getting complained of, that you can, regulate it and actually fine folks for not getting a license. They would require a state license and a local license. Basically, they will report that they're doing this, and you'll be able to track what's going on. Right now, you don't have the ability to take action to restrict rentals as much as the state law does allow, which means if you have an ordinance in place, you can restrict rentals to 6 months of the year. Now, 7 days is the shortest term that you can restrict, but you can say only 6 months out of the year. So it is a complete policy decision. I'm not so sure that staff is all that thrilled about having to track all this, but the flip side is you have complaints, and you really don't have any enforcement mechanism other than, public disturbance and that sort of thing under your municipal code. So I'm just throwing it out there. We've been aware of the fact that, we haven't availed ourselves of the licensing opportunities under the statute, and so I thought this was a very opportune time to raise it with you folks.
Alderman Kowalski.
This might be best for Bob.
You kind of popped up and went back down, Bob.
I knew it was coming.
He said, sit down.
Yeah, have a seat.
I had to
cowboy.
defer to the attorney.
Yeah, I was surprised too.
So, when this was brought up a while ago, we discussed the room tax as the market has changed and evolved, and we have 2 hotels now active in the city, and
Bed and breakfast.
bed and
a
breakfast.
timeshare.
Yep. But the marketplace really has embraced the rental of homes through electronic management applications, and we don't have a system in place to either A, promote that, B, regulate that, or C, collect a room tax on that. And room tax, as it applies to those situations, helps to promote our city through tourism and economic development. There was a lot to kind of digest in a short period of time associated with the last time that we addressed this as a body. I think now is a good time to address that. It's not a penalty for the homeowner if they go through this process. It's something that's passed on to the renter and that you would expect as a guest in a hotel associated with fees and taxes. So I don't think it's punitive. I think it allows us to help, again, promote those options within the marketplace through the city, because we'll have some control over that, and realize the revenue that we have not been receiving, and help to encourage people to come to our community to enjoy all the things that we have. If this body were to provide direction to explore that, in your position, do you have pros, cons, and things of that nature that would be associated with it?
Well, sure, we talked about it as it relates to the US Open. And again, one of the things we came with these 2 ordinances for a reason. We didn't allow it because of zoning. We don't have the ability of our current room tax ordinance to collect on short-term rental in the lodging marketplace. So the ordinance amendment in front of you incorporates that, which is part of statute. And then 2, the next step, as Stan said, would be setting up a format in which we can gather that information. The challenge staff is currently having is the state law actually does say that the lodging marketplaces are to collect room tax. What we don't know is when we receive the checks, where are they coming from? And when we contact those lodging marketplaces, they're saying, we don't have to give you that information. So by regulating them, we would know that, because we would require them to do that in addition to the Department of Revenue registration, which is a state law. So, and then it added, since we were going through that minor amendment, when it came up and we had the budget discussion tonight, trying to roll it all together. So we're having a common conversation about this. During the 2020 budget conversation at the Finance Committee and at the recommendation of the budget adoption, it was recommended, do we increase the room tax to the statutory maximum, which is 8%? So if you read my memo, currently our ordinance since 1988 has been 6% with a 1% credit. What this ordinance amendment would do is add those two new categories consistent with statute and with the zoning ordinance, as well as recommend changing the room tax to 8% effective January 1, consistent with the budget.
Thank you.
Alderman Shell Pepper?
Just to clarify, so we would be increasing the room tax and then also applying that tax instead of just to like traditional hotels, but also to Airbnb type? We already do. So,
Statute requires it. It wasn't in an ordinance. It wasn't in the zoning ordinance. We're trying to tie them all together so that if anybody challenges
the only
us.
substantive change is the increase then in the
That is correct.
tax.
That is correct.
Well, no, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's what Lou, Alderman Kavieski was talking about, was taking the next step of now regulating them. That doesn't do that.
This does not do that. what
That
we're
gives
doing
us
right
the authority to, should we choose to, but it makes all of these classifications consistent with statute, which wasn't in 1988 when they adopted it originally.
Yeah.
Well, sorry.
Alderman Kavieski?
If this body gives that direction, do we need to give additional direction to go into license? Or is that?
We want a straw vote tonight, whether you want us to work on bringing you an ordinance, because we can't take action on it. So I would like a straw vote from you. Should we leave it alone, or should we bring it to you so you can make a final decision? You're not making any decision one way or the other tonight, but I'm teeing it up in the event you want at least to be able to consider it, and if you don't, that's fine.
But what I want clarification on, Attorney Riffle,
Yep.
is the direction in the straw poll inclusive or not inclusive of licensing the BRBs and all?
That's what it is.
It is.
Do you guys want to license Airbnbs, or do you not want to license Airbnbs? That's about as succinct as I can put it.
How
Yes
com-
or no?
Alderman Shell Pepper?
How confident does the staff feel that they can do that? I mean,
Well, it's simple. You put in your ordinance and it's done.
we have the manpower and resources to.
Well, that's fair.
We're
Well,
gonna
that's what
have
I'm
to gather
wondering.
that information, I mean, and again, some of it's complaint-driven, some of it is us notifying the lodging marketplaces that they need to register with the city. That is probably the easiest method, as well as reaching out to the state of Wisconsin and saying, you're registering people with the Department of Revenue. We need to know who those are because they're supposed to register with us as well.
So it's a tax they're already collecting though, these Airbnbs and whatnot, but we're
No.
not getting it from them, basically.
We don't know
Well,
where we're
a lot of
getting
them
it
aren't
from.
collecting it.
They're not collecting it.
It's like using cash. Alderman Kavieski?
They're either A, collecting it and we're getting a check and we don't know where it's coming from because they're saying they're not obligated to tell us, which is a problem. Or B, they're not collecting it and they should be collecting it. It's not, again, it's not punitive. It's something that you're gonna pay when you go to the Hilton or wherever else. So we're missing those revenue opportunities that go directly to our tourism and economic development efforts. We no longer have Olympia in our inventory of accommodations. We're down to 2 hotels and a bed and breakfast. Again, this is a robust and developing market that has occurred over the last 5 to 8 years-ish. We, as a body, when it was available to discuss previously, would have been rushed through this, and I don't think we had enough lined up to do it appropriately. Now is really the time that it is, we have an adequate time and mechanism to address it, and if we don't take advantage of it now, we're gonna be out of compliance and some of the opportunity to kind of line everything up, and we're gonna miss out on some revenues, and we're gonna continue to get revenue that we don't know where it's coming from. So for all those reasons, I'm very much in support of including the licensing associated with the BRBs and the VBROs and all of those marketplaces that participate in that structure. And that would
Alderman
be my-
Spiegelberg?
And so if we direct Stan down this path, then could we also direct Jason to look at other communities around us and see how they have succeeded in regulating and also on following up? You know,
And the
the
Tourism Commission
success
did
that
some
they've
of
had
that
with
when we
following
talked
up?
about it.
Okay.
You know, Dora County's doing it as a county, other municipalities are doing it. So what
But-
we would be redoing is recreating some of that information. Stan's office specifically has written ordinances under the licensing section. This is a tax section, Jason's a zoning section. What Stan's talking about is a licensing section.
But I'm
They're
also,
all pieces that gotta be consistent within our code of ordinances.
I'm talking about also just getting some information on enforcing it and what kind of issues or problems that they've maybe had enforcing it, just
Absolutely. We can
as
do that
information.
As a staff.
Alderman Mulder?
I'm in favor of this as well. 8% is not insignificant, and that creates a bit of a competitive advantage for those homeowners or property owners renting out their property. I don't know why we would put our existing businesses at a disadvantage. And it's not insignificant. It's not a lemonade stand compared to a restaurant. Some of these can be serious ongoing businesses that we could be missing significant revenues from, and they're offering a service just like a hotel or the bed and breakfast, and should pay accordingly. So I'm in favor of it.
Alderman Rozak?
I'm in favor of the changes to make it compliant with state statute. I am in favor of licensing. I will not vote in favor of the tax increase. We can't say we're in favor of tourism and then all of a sudden tell everyone you're gonna pay an extra 2-3%, which is what we're doing, because if they pay it within a month, they're only paying the 5%. So we're increasing the tax by 3%. I think we're kind of speaking out of both sides of our mouth. If we license, we're gonna get people to come in and pay more taxes anyway, because we're now gonna collect it,
Right.
so.
And staff's only following up on what happened in the previous,
Understand. Yep.
previous budget conversation to bring it back for the 2021 year.
Nope, I understand.
Any further discussion?
But it's
Alderman
been at
Shellpepper?
6% since 1980.
88.
Yeah.
So you think that a 2% increase over 30-year period is it's not realistic. It shouldn't happen.
I
mean,
think we can't say that we want to increase tourism and then just tax people more to come here. We're kind of saying, hey, come to Oconomowoc, we just increased it by 2%,
Well,
and really 3%.
need to remember that when we need to fund tourism in the budget. Alderman Kavieski?
That would be the point that I think we should consider. So those dollars that come in from those visitors to our community are going back to get more visitors to our community. So and that's a benefit to the community as a whole, as well as the VBROs and the hotels and everybody else that would then in turn rent their place. So we're using dollars to generate more dollars outside of our city budget. And I think that makes sense. We don't have a big budget to begin with. And to address those opportunities for revenue outside of our tax base and our residents, I think is appropriate. Again, these people are coming in because this is an incredible community to vacation and take advantage of all the things that we have to offer for an extra 2% on a room tax. You're not gonna see people leave. You're gonna be able to enhance that, so.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
I don't see why we would not increase this to 8%. That's the statutory maximum. It's only the 2%. Like Alderman Schulperper said, we have not increased this for how long? And I can probably bet that most of the communities around us are utilizing and taking advantage of the 8%. Furthermore, when you look at your hotel bill, do you really look at what the room tax is? It's on there, you pay your bill, and away you go.
In New York and Chicago and Boston and Philly, I do for sure.
It's 18%.
18%.
Any further discussions? Entertain a motion.
So moved?
Second?
A roll, please.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Nay.
Alderman Zappel.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Thank you for the robust discussion. Let's move on to public services. Yes?
Oh, straw poll, his straw poll.
Yes.
Hey,
Yes.
Yeah. 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 I think everyone said yes.
okay, straw poll is a yay.
Mr. Fry, this is an interesting evening, folks. Let's move on, please, to Mr. Fry, our parking lot, sir.
Yes, Your Honor. Item before you tonight is construction management for the Collins Street parking lot project. At our last council meeting, the construction bids were approved for that. At that time, I noted I had a strong recommendation as to how we should proceed with the construction management. I received feedback from the group that I needed to be coming back with more than one price, and so that's why I'm here tonight. We did send out an RFP to 4 firms that had submitted for the design of the parking lot. They all submitted a proposal for the construction management. Dave Stoizer, Assistant Director of Public Works, and myself, we reviewed and scored them, and then based on that technical score and the cost score, Baxter Woodman did rank number 1. As our usual practice has been, we come here with the recommendation for the number 1 ranked. The only issue is current city policy says that the design engineer can't do the construction management. And I fully understand that. I did feel that this case warranted other discussion on that, and noted in my recommendation background that I have concerns on getting this project done yet this year, and I have seen that having 2 different engineering firms, when they have to go back and forth, it can cause some delays, and we're at the time of the year to try and get this thing paved, that a delay could mean getting it paved or not paved. And I truly have that concern, and that's why I included in the background recommending Baxter Woodman for the project.
Alderman Rozak.
Mark, thank you. Like I said in the committee hearing, I think we should be flexible with city policy. I don't think we should always be rigid. This is one that rises, I think, to the occasion of doing something a little different than what we just did. But I'll just, as a note, the reason we did what we did with regard to splitting construction management and design services is we had one group doing 3 things for the city at one time. And over a period of years from 2013 to 2018, we had a design variance to the positive, meaning we were paying more of 51%. Some years worse, some years better. The same 3 years, the construction management firm, which was the same firm for those same 5 years, was 72% over budget. So that's the reason we did what we did. I think in very specific one-time scenarios, this is okay. I don't want this to become a habit, because what we did in changing the policy was to prevent that from happening. The fixed price contracts also fix that, so I think we're in really good shape. So I'm okay doing this on this basis, given this 8-week project and the timeline. And I was one of the big pushers of this policy, and so I appreciate you understanding and recognizing what the policy was, and I'm okay with this on this
And as
one.
I noted, if we were doing this project next year where we weren't bumping up
Right.
against things, I wouldn't be here making that request.
Alderman Ellis.
I remember those conversations, and I can see some flexibility in this one because of the timeline that we're dealing with. I just wanted to go ahead and just reiterate the fact that there is a stopgap in place. Okay. And I do appreciate that. That was one of the other things that we did put in, whereas what Matt was talking about, there was no stopgap. They could have continually just charged us, and we just got fed up with that. So yeah, thank you.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
I'd like to agree with everything that Matt and Kevin have said. We, and when I say we, it was really former Alderman Derek Zwarth that really
Yes.
got this going and did a great job. The policy is in place. That's there. You know, once in a while, we may have a situation like this where we need to be flexible. So, but thank you very much for that, Mark. I had one question on the bottom of page 85 in our packet, under the account that this would go under, design engineering. Should that actually go under construction management? I was going to ask Lori that. Do we have a separate account now for construction management? I was just curious.
I'll look at that. I
Okay.
apologize.
Because I think now that we've separated this out, that we probably should have a separate account for
No, we
that.
do. We do.
Okay,
We
okay.
do. So obviously I pulled up the template from the other project.
And I kind of figured
apologize.
that's what happened. Okay, that's fine. Yep.
Alderman Kavieski?
I'm in support of allowing for that one-off as well. I would like to get some follow-up on this project. Last meeting, we talked about a potential shuttle. Again, this is not going to impact my vote on this, but is there any further information in regards to that? I don't see it on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda. You can discuss it briefly just for an update.
After that meeting, I was put in contact with someone that does provide that service. I've asked them to look at what a potential cost would be. Dave Stoyes, our Assistant Director of Public Works, did a poll of the businesses across the street to get some sort of a feeling how many vehicles in that parking lot are actually just their employees. We did that because the other day when I drove by there was about 120 cars in that parking lot, and I knew that there couldn't be all those people in those buildings yet buying things. And it turns out that well over 100 of those cars are employees of those businesses. So the most efficient way to run a shuttle service, because you get the two components, you got the people that work there, which is a consistent time and start and number, or you get the variable of the people that are shopping there. So I felt the best way to go about it was to look at two distinct parking lots, one being at the new police station and the other one being at City Beach, because we're past the beach season and that's available, that we could look at setting up a schedule that would have the owners and their employees parking there and getting shuttled in, leaving the limited off-street parking for those people that want to visit their areas. The mayor's had some ideas on, some of the parking lots around here and things we can do there. So we are working on all those. And just a quick segue. So Thursday night, we're doing a public information meeting. There's information at all your stations, and it did include a couple drawings of the parking lot, what it's going to look like when it's reconfigured. And it also has a letter in there indicating that the public information meeting is Thursday at 5 o'clock in this room. And we also had a right of entry form in there for the sign, because part of the approval of the construction was that we were going to go onto the private property and replace their asphalt as part of that work, so.
I'd entertain a motion to consider Act Resolution 20-R2890, awarding Collins Street parking lot construction management services.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion?
One more thing I just wanted to add,
absolutely.
Mayor. I just wanted to thank you for bringing forth the other bids we had talked about, because of the city policy, and we had identified that it could be an issue. I just appreciate you taking the time to give us the opportunity and not put us in a position where we had to go one way. So,
Yeah.
thank you for doing
I
that.
didn't think I had a choice, so.
It was appreciated.
Yeah,
so.
thank you.
Any further
appreciate
comments?
that.
Call roll, please.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Alderman Shell Pepper?
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski?
Aye.
Alderman Rogers?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
Alderman Zaffel?
Aye.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Mr. Gallo, Plan Commission, consider act on zoning ordinance text amendment to repeal and recreate section 17.9031A relating to the definition of household living, first reading.
Right, we held a public hearing on this earlier this evening. No one spoke. We explained at that time that this was a change in the zoning ordinance, the definition for household living. It removes the phrase tenancy is arranged on a month-to-month or longer basis with a minimum of 30 days. The reason we're removing this is state law changed, and it's prohibited cities to have ordinances that allow for rentals less than 7 days. So we have to take that out to be consistent with state law.
Alderman Kavieski.
I think we talked about this quite a bit. I'm in support of it, and I'm also in support of removing the second reading and going right into enacting this as ordinance.
Second.
Any further discussion? Alderman
I just
Shellpepper.
have one question is, it seems like this state statute went into effect in 2017, is that correct? Somewhere around there. I'm just wondering why we're 3 years behind the ball on that. Okay. It just was a question that, you know, I was wondering.
You have to
about.
understand that this happens all the time.
Okay.
You got statutes that are, ordinances that are 20 years old, and unless it comes to your attention, you know, you don't read the ordinance every day and try to, you know, reconcile it with changes in the law. That would be cost prohibitive to, first of all, I'm not going to do it, so. You know.
That's a good hourly rate to review statutes.
Yeah, I mean, you know,
I don't
we
think
could
we're gonna
hire
pay
somebody
you
to
to
look
do
at
it.
it all day, but yeah, it's not unusual, Alderman, it's
Okay.
not.
Thank
Any
you.
further discussion? A motion's been made. Call a roll, please.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Zappel.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Mr. Gallo.
Now, is that also to make that the last reading?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
That was my question.
Thank you. Mr. Gallo.
Are we moving on to item B then?
Yes.
sir.
Okay. This is a certified survey map submitted by the Mandel Group. This is to re-divide an existing lot within the Paps Farms area. The purpose of this certified survey map is to create some outlots for stormwater management purposes. This may look familiar because it came before the council in April of this year. At that time, the stormwater area was not designed. They did not have that area. They created this lot so they could purchase it, which they have done. And then they were in the process of doing the engineering. So now the engineering has been complete. They created some outlots in the rear. This document also dedicates 1.5 acres for the future access roadway called, is it Hackney Way, which goes out to Old Schoolhouse Road. So in the end, we have the main lot, Lot 1, will be 25 acres. That'll be for the Hackney House Apartments. That's the new name for it, if you haven't heard that. We were calling it the Paps Farms Apartments, but it's Hackney House Apartments. And then we have outlots, 6 acres, and another one that's 3.3 acres. Again, for stormwater purposes, these will be dedicated to the Paps Farms Stormwater District.
Alderman Kavieski.
So is this the last element that would be needed before you start moving dirt and start development, or almost?
That was Mandel, right?
So we're looking at potential move forward with this approval for this development sometime spring then,
You wanna
or
come on up?
yet this year?
The hope is to break ground yet this year. So the work that we'll perform this year will be, you know, a little less than ideal, just because, you know, it's not likely to be 75 and sunny. So we'll do what we can. We can silt fence, we can mobilize, we can relocate some utility poles, that sort of thing. So that's the hope. And then when spring comes, you'll see earthwork in earnest.
A motion?
So moved?
Second.
Any further discussions? Call roll, please.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski. Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Zappel.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Next on to new business, consider act on 2023 union contract between the City of Oconomowoc and the Wisconsin Professional Police Association. Captain Pfister.
We met with the Police Officers Union, Wisconsin Professional Police Association. We have come to a tentative agreement on a contract that affects boat patrol overtime, OIC pay, and vacation, moving it. That's to January 1, which is more of a clerical issue for payroll, and came to agreement on wages. This verbiage is for a 3-year contract, and the other 2 items, are wages and healthcare with retirement, would be renegotiated after this year.
I'll move to approve the union contract as presented.
Second.
Any further discussion? Alderman Kavieski.
Just for the record, I appreciate the negotiation and the back and forth between the union and administration, and coming up with a very acceptable approach to getting us to where we're at. So, thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Alderman Shellpepper.
I just need, I guess, this is, the first time working through this, some clarification. And I don't know how much, we can get into the details, but so we've identified the wages piece is a 1-year off. That's not part of the 3-year bargaining. Is that to protect the city's interest? Is that to protect the
That's a
police officer's interest?
negotiated agreement based on what was discussed in closed session.
Mhm.
But the core feeling of the whole process was that we're in very uncertain times.
Yeah.
And so by doing something for a 1-year period with COVID and everything going on in our world, we felt it was fair for both sides to say, let's do something that's fair and then come back to the bargaining table. Captain, do you want to have any other
No, I agree
comments
with that, and I
without
think that does
details?
protect the city with the uncertainty of everything out there right now, to give us an opportunity to revisit this. So.
Okay.
Fair
Thank you.
question, yes. I'd like to make a motion. We've had a second already. Call roll, please.
Alderman Mulder?
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper?
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski?
Aye.
Alderman Rogers?
Aye.
Alderman Rozak?
Aye.
Alderman Zaffel?
Aye.
Alderman Ellis?
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg?
Aye.
Next item, consider act on lease agreement between City of Oconomowoc and Lake Country Municipal Court on Wisconsin Avenue.
The committee of the whole discussed this, and with one alteration that I understand completely, recommended approval.
Anyone like to make a motion? Alderman Rozak.
I'm not going to make a motion, but I'd like to speak on it before we move it. Just for the public and the YouTube, I was against the police station being built where it was, and I don't want to rehash old news, but the agreement that was cut, and this lease this reflects the agreements that were cut when we made this deal, is really bad for the city. If you look at Part 6, the common areas and utilities, this doesn't read like any type of normal triple net lease that you would ever see drafted. The city, moving forward, is responsible for all maintenance for the parking lot and entrance areas. Any routine repair work needed on the leased premises shall be provided by the city at no expense to the court. So even though they're paying for some of the build-out, quote-unquote, build-out costs, we are paying for anything. HVAC goes down, we need a new parking lot because somebody poured it bad, we're footing the bill. I think the entire thing was a bad deal. This is the last piece of what I think is a bad deal, and our city taxpayers could pay in 20 years for this.
Alderman Kavieski.
So while I agree that I would prefer not to be here in this building as we went through that process, we are here, and this agreement does abide by the expectations that were set by all parties throughout that process, and it does cover the city's costs associated with the build-out of that space, and CAM charges are in line with the maintenance associated with the common area, and the mayor has included some of the parking associated with that in the lot. I will be supportive of what is in front of us. I would echo your comments that I would rather not be where we are, but we are here, and I'll support it.
Any further comments? And entertain, Alderman Shellpepper.
I'm coming into this pretty much at the tail end. I wasn't part of the vote to approve the public safety building. I didn't know about this contract until, just a few days ago, really. But in my view and my estimation, if we reject it, so just say that happened, I mean, we're out of luck then. We're doubling down almost on a larger building that now is not even being filled. There's not going to be a tenant there. How does that help us and help the city, the taxpayers? The Lake Country Municipal Court utilizes this location right now. They have another option. They're not in a position where they have to go to the public safety building, from my understanding. And so, it's a tough call for me, but I'm going to support it because I feel like we're making an even worse decision by not allowing them to be there or breaking this lease and violating it. So that's why I'm going to support it.
Like to entertain a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Mulder.
Aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers. Alderman Rozak.
Nay.
Alderman Zaffel.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
On to our next new business. We have a fun thing here. Mr. Trepetowski, would you please come to the podium? It is my honor and privilege to bring to council my mayoral appointment for the new city administrator / treasurer, Mr. Trepetowski. I'm pleased that you've all had an opportunity to meet him and get to know him. I've asked him to say a few words and then open it up for discussion and questioning. Matt.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, it was a pleasure meeting with all the different aldermen at different points throughout the process. It was good to meet you, answer your questions, and ask some of my own. I'll just say my family and I are very excited about this opportunity to come here, to move here, for me to work here. I think there's you got a very vibrant downtown, excellent school system for our children, and just overall a lot of redevelopment and new development opportunities that are available to continue to improve and grow the community. So we're excited about that and just wanted to thank you for that. And then, yeah, I guess I would be open for any questions that anyone would have.
Any questions from the council? Alderman Kavieski.
I appreciate the fact that you're standing here and that we get a chance to confirm the mayoral appointment. It's been a process of some uniqueness, and I believe you are the best candidate for the job, and I believe our community, you'll love our community, and the community will love you back. I appreciate you being here, and I think that'll pay dividends to how you approach your job and to how the community can interact with you and your family as well. This is one of the best places that you could bring your family, and I appreciate and look forward to what you bring to the table. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Any questions? Alderman Rozak.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Matt, thanks for coming out. I really appreciate the time you spent with us. I got a chance to talk to you twice, and then also once on the phone, so that was great. I think you answered some questions to me, and I think as part of the confirmation process, it's important for us to let folks know that are watching on YouTube, or, we don't have a lot of new people out in the audience tonight from outside of city staff, but that we've done our due diligence as council, and I think we've all met with you at least once and had a chance to talk to you, ask you questions, and I appreciate the mayor giving us that opportunity. That was awesome. It really gave us a chance to get to know you before we're, kind of presented with someone without a lot of background and just a resume. With that being said, I do have two questions for you. The first one is, I think overall Oconomowoc is a conservative community and definitely fiscally conservative for sure. How would you bring that to the community, I guess, on the administrator side, and or give an example of something you've done in Fort Atkinson that would attest to that?
Sure. Yeah, I think being fiscally conservative is vitally important. It's something that that's been, I think I've demonstrated throughout my career in Fort Atkinson, not only as the city manager, but as the clerk, treasurer, and finance director. You know, one of the things that I'm most proud of that I've mentioned to a few of you throughout the interview process was that at a time several years ago, roughly 10 years or so ago, that our general fund balance, our unassigned fund balance, which is essentially your reserve or your savings for the city, was at a really dangerously low level. So it was pretty much around 6% of what our overall budget was for the city's operations. And, you know, that can create problems at times just with cash flow and other issues. But over the course of that time, we've been able to make a lot of improvements and make responsible decisions to build that fund balance up to around 25% is where it sits at today. So it's in a lot better shape than it was, and that allows us to do more things as far as if we do want to make one-time purchases. If there's a great opportunity, a golden opportunity, so to speak, out there for a property acquisition or something like that, it affords you the ability to take advantage of those situations. And, you know, also if there are emergencies such as a pandemic or flooding, it allows you to be able to handle those instances. And you may be able to receive state or federal funding, but those don't come immediately. You typically have to weather the storm for a while before you're able to seek reimbursement for whether it's additional expenditures or lost revenue. So very happy to have built that up to that level.
The other question I have, and maybe it's kind of a two-part question, I think communication between city staff and council is very important, and you kind of pushing forward with the agenda and the policy agendas. Just, can you speak briefly about kind of your philosophy on communication with council and the mayor? You know, a lot of us could be changed in 2 years or a year or whatever, but I'm just curious what your kind of philosophy is on communication.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just consistent, so that each of the aldermen are receiving the same information at virtually the same time. I think one of the things that I do currently is if first what we want to do is get everyone as factual and as complete information as we can to everyone. That's what's going to come out in a committee meeting or a council meeting. And just as an example too, beyond that, if a city council member were to ask a question and it led to a further explanation or further research where I was able to supply more information to that particular member, then I look to typically put out a memo or an email to the rest of the city council so that they're on the same page, and especially if that information pertains to a discussion or decision that's going to be on a future agenda.
For your answers, I appreciate it.
Welcome.
Any further questions? Alderman Spiegelberg.
Thanks, nice to see you again, Matt, and to meet your wife, Lisa. And it was very nice to be able to have a long conversation with you early on in this process. In your opinion, this is kind of a two-part question too. In your opinion, what are the greatest things that we have going for our community? And on the flip side of that, what do you think are some of our shortcomings? And what would your goals be within the first 6 months regarding either of those?
Wow, all right. I think the first part, the greatest thing going for the community is it's got the vibrancy, like I had mentioned earlier with the downtown, but at the same time, it still brings in the small town charm of where you don't feel like you're in a large community and you still feel that it is a community and a sense of place. Another one I think is there's a lot of opportunities for redevelopment as well as new development, and you're in a good position to capitalize on those things, but to do so, I think in a mindful manner and to kind of take into account what this area provides as far as the lakes and the natural beauty, to make sure that those things are protected as well, but still to allow more people to, you know, enjoy what I think everyone does today as far as residents in the business community. Things to improve on, that's always a fun one. I think, you know, just watching, you know, the meeting here tonight and a few meetings that I have before, I think just internally, I think whether it's the city council, the city staff, or the people that are part of the process, I think it would, one thing it seems to be that there could be a little bit just more of, hey, we're all on the same team regardless of if we're staff or if we're council members, and that really everybody's just looking out for the common good of the city. And I don't think that that's not the case, but I think maybe a little bit more cohesiveness or the sense of team could be brought to the table. What else? You know, I don't know that I haven't seen a lot of negatives. I've been really impressed with the way the city operates organizationally, and very impressed with the community and the visits that we've had to kind of checking out some of the neighborhoods, and then being invited to the downtown and eating at a couple of local establishments recently. We found that people are very welcoming, so that's always appreciated, that, you know, that there's that genuineness there. Not all places are like that.
You're coming in after budget season, which is good. But what will your goals be for the first 6 months for yourself, or as it pertains to the community and your new role?
Well, I think the biggest thing is to get in first and establish relationships and get to know the people, city staff, council, the different leaders of the community, whether that's nonprofits or business leaders, and then just getting to know more of the citizens and getting a sense of where everybody's coming from. I think that's the biggest thing, is building the relationships and then understanding how things are done and why they're done a certain way, and then looking at potentially down the road if there's ways that those can be improved, because I think we always want to try to be looking for ways to do things better. And I think, you know, really looking at the strategic plan and trying to make sure that those things are being accomplished, and we're kind of trying to check those items off the list.
Thank you.
Alderman Ellis?
I want to thank you so much for considering and accepting the position. Oconomowoc is a great community, and I believe that you'll be a great asset to us, and I'm really confident in that. Also, Mayor, I want to thank you. In the past, it's always been from the inside. And you went ahead and you looked at other options outside of what we're comfortable with. And I think this is going to really do something really good for the community and for Oconomowoc. So thank you. Thumbs up on this one.
Would you like to make the motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we accept the new city administrator.
Second.
Excuse me, there's also a separation agreement in the line item, so.
And we're going to go ahead and include, let's put that also in
Yes.
my statement, that
second
we
the
accept
amended.
the separation agreement with that also.
Any further discussion? Call roll, please.
Alderman Mulder.
An enthusiastic aye.
Alderman Shellpepper.
Aye.
Alderman Kavieski.
Aye.
Alderman Rogers.
Aye.
Alderman Rozak.
Aye.
Alderman Zaffel.
Aye.
Alderman Ellis.
Aye.
Alderman Spiegelberg.
Aye.
Well, it's unanimous.
And I would, yeah, thank you. To stay up there. Vote, but I'm a very relieved aye. Also, I would like, if you could bring your wife, Lisa, would you please come up and introduce yourself to council?
You're gonna love this.
Hi.
This is my
No.
wife, Lisa Trevitusky. We've been married for 11 years now. We have 3 children. We have a 17-year-old, a 10-year-old, and a 9-year-old, so.
Trevitusky, right?
Trevitusky.
Husky,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, it's wonderful. I had the pleasure of meeting you, Lisa, and I know you're a big part of this whole package. You and your entire family, and you're very welcome in our community. I enjoyed meeting you this weekend and spending time with both of you, and congratulations to you both.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Since we have no staff reports, we'll move on to any reports or comments from Alderman. Alderman Kavieski. He did it sheepishly.
You don't need to do the clock or anything. Yeah, you
That
know.
3-minute
I'll be-
timer, Lou.
I'll be brief. So I just wanted to give council and the community an update in regards to the Suicide Prevention Week that occurred last week. The weather was a challenge, to say the least. We went through the week with resource tables, and we had a concert planned at Roosevelt Park for Saturday. Due to the weather, we did the 2020 pivot and moved that concert to the band shell on Sunday, and along with the prayer service. and it was well-received. We tried to keep the numbers down. We only made 200 tickets available. I think we ended up with about 150 people there or so. We heard a lot of very moving stories shared by families who lost loved ones, messages of hope from those who continue to move through their struggle. Many, many thanks to all of the providers for the resource tables, including and not limited to our public safety entities that are here tonight with our Western Lakes Fire District and our police department. It was truly a team effort. Some people were like, "Oh, I'm so sorry the weather, was horrible, and maybe next year the impact will be bigger." But between the local efforts and the social media, last week's activities reached over 45,000 people within our area, and it involved organizations and people and companies from far away as Georgia, Indiana, and throughout the country. So it was a pleasure to highlight our community as a leader in mental health as it applies to suicide prevention, drug abuse, and recovery. And I want to thank everybody for participating.
Great. Alderman Rogers.
Hopefully mine's quick. I think it'd be for you, Mark. I just have a question. I feel like the sidewalks downtown and stuff are getting plenty of gum on them and stuff. Who's responsible for cleanup? I'm sure it's not your problem, but just wandering around and stuff, I'm going, I know we try to keep a clean community and whatever. It's just a curiosity thing.
As most sidewalks, we always look at the abutting property owner.
Sure.
And I know that it's more of a problem when you're talking in downtown versus a residential.
For
so,
sure.
We can talk about it. I don't have an exact answer. We've never sent out a letter. Maybe it's a zoning issue and I can put it on Jason, but. So,
That's what I would do.
Yeah.
Give it to his intern.
Okay, yeah, if he gets an intern.
Ooh, that's even better.
We'll kick it around and I'll get
I'm
back
just
to you on that.
asking,
Yeah,
with
I don't-
wandering
I don't-
around
yeah.
and stuff, I'm like, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's an
Alder-
issue on the public.
Alderman Zaffel.
Alderman Kozieski, thank you for helping coordinate the events last week. I have a good feeling that you saved a couple lives with the events that were put on last week. Also want to welcome Matt and Lisa to our community. Look forward to working with you. Also want to give a good thanks to the mayor for stepping up in the time of need as the interim administrator. You didn't get a lot of thanks. You got a lot of grunt and sigh and whatnot from members of the council and the community as well, but thank you for donating your time to the community. You did not receive a extra dollar for the work you did, but thank you for the work you did.
When we finally have somebody good. Alderman Shellpepper.
Yeah, definitely would agree with Jay-Z's remarks. I actually would really love to hear a staff report, maybe in the next meeting from Diane, just regarding the election, how things are going with the absentee ballots coming up in November. It's going to be a really hot topic. It's going to be very stressful. I want to make sure we're supporting you 100% and that you've got the resources you need. So
Okay.
there's no issues that we're, or minimize them to the amount that we can. So it's going to be a big deal. The state is a big deal when it comes down to it. So, would love
That's
to.
a great idea, and it's
support that
Outstanding idea.
It's a
hear
great
about it,
idea, and
so.
I'll kind of end with mayoral comments in that the election process is going to be challenging.
Right.
And so I want to, Diane's working very hard and it keeps changing. Plus our support staff and some of our other department heads are helping so that we can get ballots out and do different things. And as you've seen, election locations. So great comment. We'll make sure that happens. I'm not sure the best time, Diane. Let's pick the best time because it's a little bit challenging. It might need to be sooner, even the next council meeting, just because people are voting early. And we'll see where we are on some of the challenges that, I've seen over the last 2 days for sure. But thank you. And I'd just like to go in a closing. And Matt, Lisa, welcome to the community one more time. It's great to have you on board. Can you start tomorrow? I'd like to ask anybody for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful time.